Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. It is Pam Esquire, also known as your law intellect. Please let me know if you can hear me because I am using this microphone. Say, yes, I can hear. Yes, I can hear. Or no, I cannot hear. Please let me know. While I await your response, I'm going to say good evening to everyone. Thank you all for joining. Please make sure that you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Oh, you guys can hear me. Thank you so much. You guys know why we are here tonight, okay? We are here because this is Sentencing Eve. Yes, this is Sentencing Eve for Sean Diddy Combs. We will know his fate in less than 24 hours. 'Twas the night before sentencing, and all through the jail, Diddy is praying that his begging for mercy will not fail. He had the best lawyers and he fought a good fight. But in one stroke of the pen, he will not see daylight. He's praying for justice, that he'll be able to go home. I know that right now he feels so alone. It's been a long road. Diddy, you've done all that you can. But I don't think Judge Submarinian is a Diddy fan. We're going to see after looking at these documents tonight. But we hope that the judge does what he's appointed to do. He was not a juror, and he shouldn't use that sentencing to convict you. As we prepare for tomorrow, we don't know what happens next. But Diddy, there's one thing you need to know. Beating the government was a flex. If you guys would like me to come to your poetry slams, I will come and join you. No, I'm joking because I was just saying at the top of my head. But anyways, welcome again, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. He don't seem like a fan to me. I'm just saying. Some of his rulings have been like been a little suspect lately. But yeah. But anyway, guys, welcome. So today, the reason why I waited so late to come on is because I figured today will be a bunch of paperwork going back and forth. And as suspected, that is what has happened today. Early on, Brian Steele filed a document of which contains a letter from Gina and a few other individuals that wanted to give character and supporting letters for Sean Combs. Then additionally, Sean Combs himself, he also filed a letter with the court begging for mercy and grace and not wanting to be an example. Judge, please don't make me an example. We'll see that as well. And then there was a 40-page or so document that Diddy's team filed in response to the government asking for over a decade in prison for those 2 Mann counts. So we're going to go over all of that tonight. So I want you all to sit back and relax. This is Pam Esquire. All right, what are we going to go over first, guys? What are we going to go over first? Let's see. What are we gonna go over? Let's go over what Diddy had to say. Let's see what Diddy has to say. Let me find his letter. I think that's what we'll go over first. Thank you so much, Gwen Brownlee. She said, "Thank you for always keeping us informed. You're the best. Thank you so much for your support." Michi3 said, "I did that. Thank you so much." Mrs. C said, "Thank you, Pam. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate the love and supports." You guys, we're going to reach this goal real quick. Let me look over here and see if I missed anything. Now, that's all you guys laughing at my little corny poem that I did in the beginning. It was a bit corny. If you're just coming in, wait till it's over and rewind it back. I got into my poetry bag for a little minute there. Then I snapped myself back to reality. Like, girl, you a lawyer. You ain't no poet. All right. This is the letter from Sean Combs. He says, "Dear Judge Submarinian, I hope this letter finds you well and in good health and spirits. Thank you for the opportunity to express my thoughts to you. First and foremost, I want to apologize and say how sincerely sorry I am for all of the hurt and pain that I have caused others by my conduct. I take full responsibility and accountability for my past wrongs. This has been the hardest 2 years of my life, and I have no one to blame for my current reality and situation but myself. In my life, I have made many mistakes, but I am no longer running from them. I am so sorry for the hurt that I caused, but I understand that the mere words "I'm sorry" will never be good enough, as these words alone cannot erase the pain from the past. Over the past 13 months, I've had to look in the mirror like never before. My pain became my teacher. My sadness was my motivator. I have to admit, my downfall was rooted in my selfishness. The scene and images of me assaulting Cassie play over and over in my head daily. I literally lost my mind. I was dead wrong for putting my hands on that woman that I loved. I'm sorry that I always will be. My domestic violence will always be a heavy burden that I will have to forever carry. The remorse, the sorrow, the regret, the disappointment, the shame. I honestly feel sorry for something that I couldn't forgive someone else for. If they put their hands on one of my daughters, this is why it's so hard for me to forgive myself. It is like a deep wound that leaves an ugly scar. Your Honor, I thought I was providing for Jane concerning her and her child, but after hearing her testimony, I realized I hurt her. For this, I am deeply sorry. I lost my way. I got lost in my journey, lost in the drugs and excess. My downfall was rooted in my selfishness. I have been humbled and broken to my core. Jail is designed to break you mentally, physically, and spiritually. Over the past year, there have been so many times that I just wanted to give up. There have been some days I thought I would be better off dead. The old me died in jail and a new version of me was reborn. Prison will change you or kill you. I choose to live. Every day since my incarceration, as difficult as my circumstances currently are, I have made the best of my time by reading books, writing, working out, or in therapy, obtaining the tools and knowledge to deal with my past drug abuse and anger issues. I have been putting in the work and working diligently to become the best version of myself to ensure that I never make the same mistakes again. I realize that I am in a situation where no amount of money, power, or fame can save me. That's true, Diddy. That's true. Only God can save me. That is true. My grandmother used to teach me that God makes no mistakes. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. She's over here making noise. Okay. My grandmother used to teach me that God makes no mistakes and that everything he does is for your good. I believe that a bad situation can be used for good. Although this situation has been the hardest and darkest time in my life, good things have come out of my incarceration. For starters, I am now sober for the first time in 25 years. I have been trying my best to deal with my drug abuse and anger issues and take accountability as well as positive steps towards healing. One of the most beautiful things I have experienced being asked by my fellow inmates to teach and mentor them. They wanted to learn what I did to become a successful businessman. I was inspired by their hunger and desire to learn information in order to not only set goals, but achieve any goal and dream that their hearts desire. I started teaching a 6-week program called Free Game, title given by my fellow inmate, which I was able to have approved and sanctioned by the BOP. I don't just teach about my success, I also teach about my mistakes and failures. It has truly been a blessing to do something positive in a negative situation. It has been a beautiful to see the newfound hope in my fellow inmates' eyes. The most shocking thing was to see the unity and the peace this class has produced. As you are probably aware, jails and prisons are segregated places. However, in our class, we have Black, Spanish, white, and Asian all together in one room, learning and working together. We even have an interpreter for the Spanish speaking inmates. The biggest miracle that I've seen with this class is all of the gangs, such as Bloods, Crips, MS-13s, Trentarios, and 18th Streets in one room working together. I am also proud to say that since this class started, there have been no fights in our unit. This class has also helped me in my time of need and despair. Being able to do something good for others has also given me much needed hope. God blessed me with the opportunity to help others, and I will continue to do so. I ask you for your mercy today, not only for my sake, but for the sake of my children. God blessed me with 7 beautiful children, 3 sons and 4 daughters. Their names are Quincy, Justin, Christian, Chance, Jesse, Delilah. Newest addition is 2-year-old Love. 4 of my children lost their mother, Kim Porter, as she tragically passed away in 2018. I am their only parent. I have failed my children as a father. My father was murdered when I was 3 years old, so I know firsthand what it is like not to have a father. More than anything, I just want the opportunity to return home and be the father that they need and deserve. God also blessed me with the greatest mother in the world. My mother sacrificed her life and dreams to provide for me and my younger sister, Keisha. She worked 3 jobs to make sure we had a roof over our heads, clothes on our backs, and the best education. My mother is now 84 years old and she recently had brain surgery. Despite her own health challenges, she attended my trial every day. I have always been her primary caretaker. It breaks my heart that I put myself in this situation, and for the first time, I am unable to be there for my mother when she needs me most. As I write you this letter, I am scared to death. I bet you are, Diddy. Scared to spend another second away from my mother and my children. I no longer care about the money or the fame. There is nothing more important to me than my family. I understand that one factor the court has to consider is deterrence. Deterrence for me and for others to ensure that no one allows I'm sorry, that no one follows in my footsteps and makes the same mistakes. For over a year, I have been locked up in one room with 25 other incarcerated people sharing the same one room. In this room that I share, there are no windows, there is no natural and clean air, there is no sunlight, and we all live in one room. We eat, sleep, use the toilet, take showers, and prepare meals all in the same room. The conditions that my actions have placed me in are inhumane. I don't tell you this for pity or sympathy. I'm simply sharing my truth and the truth of my fellow incarcerated people. We have no clean drinking water, and we boil our drinking water. We all share one washing machine, which is broken. I am surrounded by drugs and live every day with the constant threat of being stabbed or losing my life. Again, I am not expecting pity or sympathy, but my time at MDC has changed me forever. Prior to being in jail, I took care of and was present for my family. Being in jail and because of my conduct, I lost the ability to care for my mother. I lost the ability to effectively raise and support my children. I have missed my three daughters' proms and graduations. I have missed taking one of my daughters to college. I have lost the freedom to teach my 2-year-old how to speak, dance, play, or be there to console her when she falls down or has a nightmare. I started from nothing and working hard to earn everything I had. But because of my conduct, I have lost all of my businesses. I have lost my career. I lost the charter schools that I started, and I have destroyed my reputation and stained the reputation of those that work for me. I lost my being present with my family. Between of all of my losses and lessons, I can say for a fact that I will never be another criminal courtroom again. And I do not believe any other person would do anything similar from fear of similar punishments. He said he will never be in a courtroom again. And he believes that any other person wouldn't do, they're not going to do what he did either because they don't want to be where he is. If you give me a chance, I would like the opportunity to share my story with people to prevent at least one person from making the mistakes that I've made. Ooh, Diddy, you are long-winded, bro. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I know that God put me here to transform me. Since incarceration, I have gone through a spiritual reset. I'm on a journey that will take time and hard work. I'm proud to say I'm working harder than I ever had before. I'm committed to the journey of remaining drug free, nonviolent, and a peaceful person. I thank God that I'm stronger, wiser, clean, clear, and sober. God makes no mistakes. I realize that this trial has received a tremendous amount of global press, and Your Honor may be inclined to make an example out of me. I would ask Your Honor to make me an example of what a person can do if afforded a second chance. If you allow me to go home to my family, I promise I will not let you down and I will make you proud. Today, I humbly ask you for another chance to be a better father, another chance to be a better son, another chance to be a better leader in my community, and another chance to live a better life. I am writing this not to gain any sympathy or pity. This experience is simply the truth of my existence and has changed my life forever. And I will never commit a crime again. And he missed a period right there at the end. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I think based off of this here letter, if Diddy were able to sing a song at the end, he would probably sing, know I've been changed. I know I've been changed. I, I know I've been changed. You know the angels in heaven done signed my name. That'd be his church song. Then if he had to sing his own song, sound like he said one more chance a few times. He'd be one more chance. Judge, give me one more chance. One more chance. All right, so that is Diddy's letter, okay? And so TLC Necessary, thank you for the super chat. You said the white TX mega church pastor Robert Morris will only serve 6 months for child sex abuse. Oh, that's all he got? I think he pled though, right? Diddy should get time served. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Queen Brielle, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. All right, so that, yes, amen and amen again. Francesco, good to see you. Are you guys hitting that like button? We are over here. It is Sentencing Eve. And so right now we are going over all of the last minute documents that have been filed on today on Sentencing Eve. Prophetess Pam Intellect has arrived with the Intellect Believers. Thank you so much for the super chat. Otis, thank you so much. You are so kind, my brother in Christ, for sending this $50 super chat. I thank you so much. May God bless you exceedingly abundantly above all you ever could ask or think. Rousey, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months. I appreciate that. All right, now we have Gina. Gina said she wanted to write a letter to. If you guys know who Gina is, she is the one that was allegedly victim number 3 who decided she was not going to come to court. And in this letter, she gives an alleged rationale as to why she was not called into the court, so we can all get an understanding as to why she may have not have went. So it starts out, like I said early this morning, the Honorable Brian Steele. He wrote a letter to the judge and said, I hope that all is well with you in your honorable court always. For scheduling purposes, please be advised that at least 4 members of Mr. Combs' defense team plan to address this honorable court at the sentencing hearing on Friday, October 3rd, 2025. There will also be an approximately 15-minute video, which is being finalized at this time, which will be played for this honorable court. Once the video is in final form, we will share same with the prosecution prior to sentencing. Also attached are additional letters that have been filed. Attached are the unredacted versions of the letters for your honorable court and the prosecution. It is an honor to practice before your court. Brian still has such deference. It is great. All right. And so we know now that 4 defense team members plan on talking on tomorrow. There's going to be a video that's going to be played. Tory Lanez did the same thing in his, I don't know how I feel about the video portion because I watched Tory Lanez do that in his trial and it didn't really help him much. It just talked about all of this, all of the philanthropy work that he's done and at the end of the day, it really didn't help him. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Pull all stops. I understand that. So then our girl Gina, she said, Dear Judge Submaranian. You guys ready? I know you are sentencing Sean Combs on Friday, and I've been thinking a lot about it. I saw in the press letters were submitted by many concerning the sentencing. No one asked me or told me to write this letter, but I felt my voice should be heard as I was identified as victim 3 in this case. And I understand charges that were brought concerning me, including accusations of ex trafficking and prostitution. I cooperated fully with prosecutors. I met with them 3 times, answered their questions, and gave them all the information and evidence I had. including pictures, videos, and text messages from my phone. During those meetings, I felt pressured to feel like a victim. I told them I was not, but they insisted that I was, even when I expressed my truth otherwise. I understand they concluded that I had been sex trafficked and involved in forced prostitution, quote. I did not agree with that conclusion. I was not trafficked. I did not engage in prostitution with him or others. That would have been my testimony if called to the stand. I was subpoenaed and fully prepared to testify and answer all questions truthfully, but I was informed by my lawyer that I would not be called to take the stand. I want to emphasize that I understand the seriousness of this case and the pain others may feel. I cannot speak for anyone but myself. In terms of sentencing, I kindly ask that you consider releasing him back to his family. I understand throughout the process he has been cooperative and respectful, including turning himself in. Throughout this process, he has never once reached out to me or made me feel uncomfortable in any way. I believe he will continue to be compliant with the court's conditions upon release. I understand that accountability is important, and I am not writing this to dismiss the gravity of the charges nor to criticize anyone. I write to express my perspective as a so called victim. I write to express how I felt during the investigation and trial and how I feel now waiting to hear the sentence. I felt compelled to share my own perspective honestly. I respectfully ask that you take my words into consideration when making your decision. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to be heard. So listen, Gina got a whole different song. She's like, you can run the streets with your house. I'll be waiting for you. Boy, it's true. I'll be waiting. She got a whole different song. She said she got his back, his front, and his side. So that is Gina. She says she is not a victim. She felt pressured and she felt that they were trying to lead her to believe that the situation she had with Diddy was sex trafficking and prostitution, and she does not believe that is the case. Okay. Which leads me to a discussion that me and Deb was having earlier, where I was like, do these people not know that there are women out here that's just as nasty? Hmm? They like to get into some things. Do they not know that? Because it kind of makes it feel like, see, and it bothers me a bit because as far as we as women came from property to having rights and all of that, it's almost like they try to put it on you that there is no way in this world that you would want to be engaged in this type of sexual behavior. When in reality, there are women that have some higher drives than some of these dudes out here, and they out here wow. They like that type of stuff. So it's almost like, oh, you gave us this information on what y'all was doing, but I'm here to let you know that's prostitution. You know you were being trafficked, right? That's what it sounds like. This is what my problem is about that. Another thing, Cassie kind of said the same thing, that she didn't realize she was allegedly trafficked, if I recall correctly, until she went and talked to a therapist and the therapist described what it is. So it's almost like some of this psychological stuff is people that tell you that this was it is, when some of this stuff, y'all may have been enjoying some of this stuff. I'm not saying everybody. There are some that really are trafficked. There are some that really are SA. All right. And they need to be in prison. Let's be clear. But it makes it feel like when women choose this, just like he chose to do this, you think it ain't women that choose? How do you think he was able to choose this? It obviously was women around here that was down for it. How do you think he even knew about a freak off for a hotel night? Because he seen that other women was down for it. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, that is Gina. Make sure you hit that like button. I'm going to see what you guys are saying. Carla said Carisha and her letter is making Cassie angry. She does not want her to be with Diddy. I don't even know why Cassie even care at this point. She got her couple of dollars. People beat you and tell you it's love are full of ish. That's from TA Company. You know, I agree to a degree on what you're saying, to an extent, because some people love to the capacity they know how. I think we measure everybody to, we will say, if I'm not putting my hands on anybody that I love, but you have some people that have no clue. That's how you get stalkers out here that's willing to take your life, did not be with you. Because psychologically, you don't know their trauma. And again, I think it was Charlemagne the guy was talking about Nicki Minaj today. And I usually don't even listen to his little advice, but he says you cannot, and I'm paraphrasing, you can't do anything about the trauma that you endure, but you are responsible. You're not responsible for the trauma you may have endured, but you are responsible for the healing. And I think a lot of people go around unhealed, they take it out on other people. They love to the capacity they know how to. If they never experienced love and never seen it and don't know what it looked like, how you think they're going to be able to do it with you? So it's a lot to that. So I don't like to generalize phrases, in my opinion, but hey. The woman he chose said if he gets out and abuse her again, we don't want to hear it. Take it to the authorities. And that's exactly what they should do, is take it to the authorities. If he put, I know that people have come out and they're like, I don't believe nothing he say. Basically, you're saying nobody can change. And it always amazes me that when it comes to us, we want to be forgiven for our worst days. We are not supposed, we don't want to be defined by our worst days. If we were ex addicts or ex alcoholics or ex whatever, and we don't do it anymore, we used to beat up people and now we got anger management or we have discipline and control. We want people to forgive us, but we don't want other people to be forgiven. And this is why, biblically speaking, it says the measure that you forgive is what's going to come back to you. So, baby, I am free to forgive because I know I messed up a whole lot. All right. So I'm not saying letting them back in your house. I'm not saying letting them back in your bed. I'm saying if he actually is trying to do better, this may have, only time will tell. Only time will tell if he really is a changed person. Only time will tell. We don't know. All right. You know what, TA Company? You're not a Gina fan, are you? You're not a Gina fan? That's what they allege. I think but she took it back. I guess allegedly she was mad or something when she did the interview. I don't know. All right, let's move on, guys. That is and Max said, I know Puff has the bubble guts and does, because his lawyers do too. That's why his lawyers were able to reply to the sentencing brief that was long than a mug from the government almost immediately. Their team no sleep. They are team no sleep right now for whatever gets filed, and they might have filed something else. I'm gonna have to check before we get off here. Yes, people can change, but yesterday he called me a liar 50 times with no law. That today he a changed man. Excuse me, did you watch the trial? Don't care to? Because I think we all called her a liar. Huh? She did lie. And just because he called her a liar, he basically said, well, it was his, first of all, it was his attorneys. He didn't write that. So let's start with that. That was his attorneys. Secondly, we all watched that transcript and watched her get caught up in the game a few 11 times. We did see that. And thirdly, just to, for the sake of conclusion, no citation means what? He didn't put any case law. By basically the case law that the judge wanted is any case law saying that she is precluded from speaking tomorrow. That was it. So what does the lack of citation have to do with whether he changed or not? Hmm? I'm just asking. Are we not watching the same trial of which Mia was getting caught up in the game on cross-examination? Maybe not. No? Okay. All right. So then there were some more letters from a Shamoy who said, I think they work together. I'm not going to read all this. Everyone's long winded the night of on sentencing eve. Everyone is up and alert and writing a whole lot. This is Mr. Shamoy Allen. I assume, I guess it's a male. And I'm writing to you with the utmost respect and support of my mentor, Mr. Sean Combs. I'm a hardworking man, a father, and a college graduate. Family and faith are important to me, and it is through those same values that I have built my life and career. I had the privilege of knowing Mr. Combs for several years, not only through my own experiences with him, but also through my lifelong friendship with his son, Justin. Okay, so he wrote, I'm not about to, his stuff. Whitney. Miss Whitney said, I was an employee of Mr. Combs, or Mr. C, as she called him, at Bad Boy Entertainment for 3 years in the HR and operation department. During my time there and after, I have interacted with Mr. Combs many times on a professional level, this businesses and homes. During the time I have known Mr. C, he has always conducted himself in a professional and respectable manner. The Sean Combs that I know is a person of moral character, integrity, and responsibility for his family, employees, and friends. In the workplace, he always demonstrated respect for others, a strong work ethic, and a genuine concern for the people around him. Completely being aware of the charges before the courts, I believe that this situation is not a reflection of Mr. C's true intention of his purpose in life. In my many experiences with him, he has always conducted himself in an honest and respectful manner. I believe he has shown remorse and accountability for his actions and is committed to making amends and improving his life moving forward. See, the thing about whether a person has changed, you really don't know until they get the opportunity to show you. That's just the bottom line. People that know him and know how he was, they probably feel like he's apologized before. All of them have heard his apologies before, and so they don't believe it this time. They have a measuring stick of his apologies. So they don't want to believe it this time. But really, you don't know if a person has changed until they have the opportunity to show you that they've changed. Now, will the judge allow this to happen? We don't know. We don't know if the judge is going to say, you know what, we're going to let you go, or we agree that you have changed, but you need to do a little bit of time. You need to cool your heels in the prison for a little while. Take your free game with Diddy to the federal penitentiary. He may do that. So when people say, I believe he's remorseful, we don't really know. I mean, let's just be clear. He says it, and for me, I don't have a reason not to believe it because I don't know the guy. But I think his actions are always going to speak louder than words. And so we have to see how he changes. Then we got this letter. Who is this from? Lord, this came from the penitentiary right here, I'm sure. All right, so this guy's from the penitentiary. He said the last 25 months, oh, he's at MDC. You see how much I get prison mail and stuff? I'm like, I know what this is from. This was printed off on the little system that you can email people. The last 25 months in MDC, the top high profile cases, me, Sean Diddy Combs. Also, he was a high profile case too. Sam Bankman Fried, Juan Hernandez. I have met all of them and lived with them all in the same unit. Of all the most motivated and influential I've met is Mr. Combs. I've been with Mr. Combs now for close to 200 days where we sleep right across from each other. I have had multiple conversations with him and they have been very peaceful, enlightening, and motivational. I see Mr. Combs as a very kind, sensitive, genius person. He really cares about his name and his reputation. Ooh, this is hurting my eyeballs. I've seen how after legal visits, he would come back and work on his case and still kept his mind strong to also work on himself. He rarely spoke to people, but when he did, it would only be positive. But I feel I have gotten to know him well due to our conversations, and I can say that he is not who the media portrays him to be. I've seen him go through extreme emotional changes through his case. When he first arrived, he was extremely depressed and was going through dark stages. But now he has found his light again because he has seen what this can do to your family. And although he fell off, he has climbed back to the top of the mountain again. He personally asked me that when we are released, if we can create an AI platform so that we can help the people. We're not only for business for but for emotional support. We have spoke about creating programs to take the youth out of the street and help them with music, sports, and just to find their light where people without the source or the funds or the connections can come to expand their minds and resources. Also, I have been to multiple social visits where I was able to meet his mother and kids. I have yet to I have to yet to see in MDC a family with such a strong connection. After social, you can see the pain on his in his eyes, and because of this, I see that it saved his life because he is able to sit back and see from a different perspective. Since he has found his light, he has spread it and tried to shine as bright as he can by sharing it with the unfortunate and MDC by starting a course named Free Diddy, Free Game with Diddy. Child, I can't read no more of this. I can't do it. I can't do it. But you guys get the picture. He's been at MDC helping people and all of that good stuff. Okay, there was another person, Miss Marsh. She gave a letter. Um, who else is this? Mr. McMillan Esquire. So we got another lawyer giving a letter. Miss Riviera, she is giving a letter. Uh, Giovanni Sarius gave a letter. Reverend Gary Johnson over there, chaplain in Miami, has given a letter as well. So those were the letters that were submitted. Honey, the prison letter was burning my eyeballs. I'm sorry, y'all. But if you guys want to read it, then I'll screenshot it and let you squint at it in the membership. But I'm not doing it. Deanne said free game with Diddy. Is it a party? Deanne. Deanne. Deanne, do you hear me? Okay. So the free game with Diddy is a program he created to help those that were interested in entrepreneurship and have a desire to be a boss like Diddy. So we did read that early on, of which Diddy talked about it somewhat in his Baby, I'm begging, baby, I'm begging, begging, baby. In his letter, of which he was begging for grace and mercy from the judge. All right. We did read that. No, it's not. It's not a how to Harlem Shake. It is not a class on how to Diddy Bop. It is not a class on how to just do that 1, 2 he does in every video. It is literally a class about business. Okay, Deanne? I hope that clears that up for you, sis. DC said, did Jake send a letter? If you don't, if he did, I didn't see it. Maybe I look at the old batch. I don't know if he did. I didn't see it. You said Diddy should be on Life After Lockup. I'd watch it. I would watch it too. But I think the way Diddy has just his businesses are pretty much demolished. His character, his reputation, his branding, all that stuff, he's going to have to rebuild. I think Diddy is going to do something on his own ownership and platform, which would make the most sense. Why go on something unless you get a multi-million-dollar deal with one of these streaming networks? You know we all watching, right? We all if they like say for instance, if his entire family this whole time has been vlogging and they vlog some of the jail calls, they you can't bring a camera into the building to the MDC. But if you actually they were vlogging everything and like the attorneys, if they were kind of keeping videos of them working late nights and typing and all, we would all be watching it. Let's just be clear. Ray said Netflix better get on it. Listen, he got to make some money. So I think whatever he does, whatever Diddy chooses to do, is going to be in the best interest of him. Hey, Joy, you're not late. You're always on time. You can always go back. But stay right now while we're live, and then go back when we're off, because we want you to comment in the chat. All right, sis. Thank you so much for joining. So far, we have went over a letter from Diddy. We have went over a letter from Gina as well, and we went over a few letters. Well, went over one letter from an inmate that was very, very tiny. So I did it. I did the best that I could before I waved the white flag. And then there were a few other individuals that worked with Diddy as well. We didn't quite go through their, I just named them. So the next item of business today on tonight's towards the night before sentencing docket is the response. Okay. Well, Diddy, let me see. Hold on one second. Not from the government. I don't want that. Let me see what I want. Let's see. So that was that. And I did tell you all the video has to be submitted to the court tonight. I mean, yeah, it was supposed to be submitted by 5:00. Whatever video he called, that he wanted to do had to be submitted by 5:00 tonight. But let me find this other one. What am I doing? What am I doing here? That's not it. Why is it not showing up on here? One moment. I don't have anyone working with me. I'm my own producer and everything. Fake producer. Let's see. I'm going to put this back on here again. I'm up here. I got some stuff today from federal court. I'm trying to make sure I don't put my business up here. Want y'all to know my business. Reply sentencing. So this is the reply. Okay. You see how long this is? This is the reply to the government's request for those astronomical amount of years. All right. This is the table of contents with all of the case law and information. So when I say that his team is working overtime, trust and believe they are working overtime. So let's do this introduction. And then let me see what would be best to go over, because we're not going over this. We might just read the headlines. We're going to read the topics. Let's see, because I haven't read this at all. But I don't want to keep you guys too long. Okay, so as I told you all, the reason why the government got to the numbers that they got is because they were finding ways to enhance his sentence. So the intro, I think, is very telling. So let's read the intro here. As we have emphasized many times, the jury has spoken. The government presented its best evidence to 12 citizens to try to prove Sean Combs used threats, force, fraud, and coercion to compel his girlfriends to engage in freak-offs and hotel nights. And it failed. Mr. Combs now stands before the court to be sentenced for much less serious offenses. If fairness, justice, and the U.S. Constitution mean anything, the jury's verdict should be respected. Mr. Combs should be sentenced for what he was convicted of: transporting consenting adults interstate to have sex and nothing more. And I think that paragraph is very telling, because I can totally see a judge unintentionally becoming the 13th juror. Your job in the sentencing is to do just that, whether you like the verdict or don't like the verdict. You are not supposed to become the 13th juror. You are the referee or the gatekeeper. You are the person that tells, make sure that everything is ran smoothly. The evidence is it that's supposed to be admissible is admissible. You are the director of this courtroom drama. And so when you get to the point where you're sitting back contemplating on how perhaps I can go above and sentence someone as if they were convicted of crimes that they were not convicted of, then you are acting outside of the role of a gatekeeper and more so as a 13th juror. And we're going to see what happens tomorrow on which side the judge is on. He is a newer judge, he's been on for a couple of years. And so I don't know how many of these, this probably is his first high profile case. But anyway, let's go on. Instead of accepting the verdict and advocating a reasonable sentence, the government has gone to extreme lengths to try to justify a draconian sentence, particularly for a 55-year-old man. Instead of addressing the conduct for which Mr. Combs was convicted, the government has devoted 161 pages to rehashing evidence rejected by the jury and concocting far-fetched legal arguments to try to jack up the guideline range to an absurd 360 life level, as if he had been convicted not only of the acquitted charges, but also of other uncharged offenses. It labels as victims numerous individuals who had nothing to do with the Mann Act charges, dredging up discredited witnesses like the woman who calls herself Mia, Deontay Nash, Brianna Bongelin, and even Jordan Atkinson, a person whose allegations are so incredible, the government pulled her from its witness list mid-trial. And instead of putting forth a reasonable guidelines range or addressing where this case fits within the relevant sentencing data, the court directed the parties to provide. The government asked the court to treat it like a sexual assault or rape case that was not and could not have been charged. It is not difficult to see what is going on here. The prosecutors know full well the court will not actually adopt all of their unduly severe enhancements or baseless arguments. But by taking their advocacy to the extreme, they hope to persuade the court to disregard Mr. Combs' position, split the baby, and adopt probation's recommendation. That would be a grave mistake. Probation made clear its recommendation is based on the premise that there was force, fraud, and coercion. Here, its recommendation is improperly based, in other words, on acquitted conduct. So that means they should be objecting to some of the things within that probation recommendation. Anyways, in light of the jury's acquittals, the longstanding DOJ policies, and all the relevant sentencing data, any sentence exceeding a modest term along the lines requested by Mr. Combs would be unreasonable and disproportionate to other Mann Act cases. The government's advocacy in this case has gone way beyond zealous. The government's advocacy in this case has gone way beyond zealous. It is indecent and deeply troubling. It violates the revered principles so famously articulated by Attorney General Robert Jackson over 85 years ago about the proper role of a federal prosecutor. He observed that because the, quote, prosecutor has more control over life, liberty, and reputation than any other person in America, end quote, these awesome powers must be tempered by the, quote, spirit of fair play and decency that should animate the federal prosecutor, end quote. As he explained, quote, while you are being diligent, strict, and vigorous in law enforcement, you can also afford to be just. Although the government technically loses its case, it has really won if justice has been done, end quote. Moreover, quote, a sensitiveness to fair play and sportsmanship is perhaps the best protection against the abuse of power, and the citizen's safety lies in the prosecutor who tempers zeal with human kindness, who seeks truth, not victims, who serves the law and not factual purposes, and who approaches his task with humility. The prosecutors have not lived up to these principles and apparently do not respect the unanimous verdict of 12 New Yorkers rendered in this case. But fortunately, the fate of Sean Combs is now in this court's hands. Like all human beings, Mr. Combs is flawed, but he is the first to admit he has made many serious mistakes, and he has been working very hard to better himself and make the most of his time behind bars. We respectfully submit that he deserves a chance to continue his rehabilitation outside the walls of prison, and ask the court to be merciful and afford him that opportunity. Mr. Combs has already spilled much ink and submitted voluminous materials that we hope will assist the court in fashioning a just sentence. We submit this reply brief solely to respond to specific arguments in the government's brief as to the proper role of acquitted conduct at sentencing, certain guideline issues, the government sentence disparities argument, and factual issues related to Mr. Combs' treatment and time at the MDC. Y'all hitting the like button? Please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. Auntie Eva said, just might be time served. Robert said they are setting the stage for filing a complaint against judge for excessive sentencing. They're gonna appeal. I think if he gives an excessive, I think they're gonna appeal anyway, but we'll see. Dad Paul said may get time served in good behavior. The IE network said he is biased, and he has been biased from day one. Francesca said he definitely getting some time. Judge sounds annoyed. Dr. Judge sounds annoyed. Hey, Dr. Jonathan Davis, good to see you. The IE said the judge wants to be the third. We'll see. I don't want to put that on him. I'm just saying, I think some of his rulings have been a little personally. But, I've also never done prosecution work. So I'm always a person leaning towards grace and mercy. But when you need to go down, I don't have a problem with it happening now. But what I'm saying is my leaning is always towards being fair. So I have to acknowledge that. A lot of prosecutors are towards they get to a point where they want to win instead of justice. That has been a problem of why you have wrongful convictions. And today is National Wrongful Conviction Day. For those of you that do not know, go follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at pam.esq. Hit a like button over there on that Wrongful Conviction Day flyer. Okay. Today is Wrongful Conviction Day internationally. And so we have a whole day which lets you know there are thousands of people that are wrongfully convicted. And some of that occurs in situations like this, of which you have a prosecutor or prosecutors that are overly zealous. They care about winning instead of justice. They may hide evidence. They'll hide exculpatory evidence, which is evidence favorable to the defense, because they pretty much know if they give them this evidence, it may create reasonable doubt. And so they just don't give it to you and hope you don't find it for years, or people like me who come behind you 10 years later and find it. So yeah, you have to be very, very careful. All right, let's see what they're talking here. The government's draconian guideline calculation defies the law and the factual record. So their point is the government seeks severe sentence based on the same arguments that failed to persuade the jury about threats, force, fraud, or coercion. So they are trying to enhance the sentencing based on threats, force, fraud, and coercion. So let's read the first couple of paragraphs so we can get a gist. Hyper-technical distinctions aside, the government's argument boils down to a claim that this is not just a Mann Act case, because Cassandra Ventura and James did not voluntarily travel to freak offs, and hotel nights. But regardless of the precise words used, force, fraud, coercion, threats, manipulation, the government's argument for a draconian sentence for these transportation offenses are materially indistinguishable from the arguments that failed to persuade the jury Mr. Combs was guilty of sex trafficking. Okay. Okay. Let's go through this. I'm trying to get to their bottom line here. All right. The second portion, the government misinterprets the acquitted conduct amendment and disregards the constitutional law on acquitted conduct. So, this is what I was talking about, what I told you all. So, there was a passage, and because I literally, I never really practiced in federal court for criminal basis anyway, just civil. So, I did have a criminal case back in 2016 or 17. I think it was 2017. And I have to ask Dan because I think he came. That's the only court hearing he ever came to. But it was a high profile politician here. Well, not politician, but a public figure, I should say. And um during that, so that was the last time I had actually done any type of but that long ago. But since that time, from my understanding, there was some amendment of some sort where you're not supposed to factor in acquitted conduct when you do the sentencing guidelines. Now, of course, with everything, they have exceptions to every rule. And so that's why I said I couldn't really answer that question because I haven't read it like that. And I'm not going to just give you guys some more information off my hip. And I definitely ain't going to Google it because I see that Chat GPT get it wrong sometimes. So I will have to really look into it to see. But let's see what they say. Maybe they'll talk about it right here. The Sentencing Commission adopted the amendment concerning acquitted conduct in response to decades of criticism from scores of federal jurists, including Supreme Court justices from across the ideological spectrum. The government is tone deaf to all of that and wants the court to ignore the acquittals and reduce the new guidelines to nullity. Its meritless arguments make a mockery of the new guidelines and the constitutional and fairness principles that led to its promulgation. So yeah, this is what I knew about, and I mentioned it before, but I told you all, just like I'm telling you now, I really ain't read into it like that because it wasn't applicable to what I was doing. So like post-conviction motions are usually for me in the state court, and then civil 1983 cases for wrongful conviction is in federal court, but it's civil, it's not criminal. So the guidelines now provide that relevant conduct does not include conduct for which the defendant was criminally charged and acquitted in federal court. That's what I read. That's all I read. Okay. In other words, acquitted conduct is conduct that is used to prove or, as applicable, commentary explains, underlies an acquitted charge. No other interpretation of the amendment makes any sense, and the government offers none that does. And the record makes clear that here the acquitted conduct encompasses most of the trial evidence. So that was my thought. And I said it before. I was like, based on what I read, perusing, it sounds like you're not supposed to use the acquitted conduct when it comes to sentencing. There is a narrow exception. So here's the exception. For conduct that, quote, establishes in whole or in part the instant offense of conviction, but it doesn't apply here. The Mann Act counts only require proof that Mr. Combs knowingly transported an individual in interstate commerce, and two, with the intent that the individual engaged in prostitution. Accordingly, any evidence that does not prove either of these two narrow elements is acquitted conduct, not relevant conduct, which the court cannot consider when determining Mr. Combs' guideline range. So based on what they're saying the definition is under the comments of this rule, it sounds like all of the information we received, the predicate acts about Kid Cudi, about getting beat up, the different like Deontay, who said he was popped by Diddy, all of those different conducts that he was not, that he was actually, that fell up under the RICO. So because the RICO was dismissed, they're saying all of that was dismissed. So all of that information shouldn't even be included. But it looks like the government is trying to find a way to include all this other conduct in order to enhance his sentence. The government has no response to this simple and straightforward interpretation of the acquitted conduct amendment and the trial evidence. Instead, it strains to gut the amendment by interpreting the exception so broadly that it swallows the rule. According to the prosecution, nothing is acquitted conduct unless either one, the jury found in the defendant's favor on particular factual or mixed questions using a special verdict form, or two, the factual and legal elements of an acquitted count are identical to a particular guidelines enhancement that might otherwise apply. The government says none of the evidence that failed to prove the acquitted sex trafficking and RICO charge falls into either category, and therefore all of it is fair game and can be used to more than double the offense level and increase the guidelines range tenfold. So this is how they are enhancing it, by trying to add all the stuff that he wasn't acquitted in, and there's that all the stuff that he was acquitted for, and then they're kind of squinching their eyes like, let's use this. I think we could fit this in the exception. Let's fit this in the exception and enhance it by 10 times or whatever amount of times that he would have, because we don't like to lose. All right. So there's that for that question on the sentence enhancement. I think that actually answers all of our questions. All right, y'all. You said, and that's not fair. That's not the law. Well, they're going to argue it back. Let's just hope that the judge agrees with it too. Now, if the judge, that's why I said if the judge agrees to some of these enhancements and he goes to prison for a while and gets a lot of years, they're going to appeal probably before they even leave out. They might have it already pre-drafted, and all they got to do is fill in the nonsense or wait for the transcript, and then it'll be filed by Monday. So yeah. So yeah. All right. So let's move on. Let's see. So they're talking about the amendment, what it means. The government's stingy interpretation of the acquitted conduct amendment also conflicts with the amendment's drafting history. So I told you all before that sometimes, in order to know the intent of the statute, you go back to the history and you look at the commentary, you look at when they were going back and forth arguing it on the floor, or when they were going back to revise it, and like you go back and forth about all of that. So looks like they're looking at the different commentary. But let's move on here because this is very long. The government repeatedly argues that the court cannot make factual inferences about what the jury did or did not find with the verdict. The government is dead wrong. As Justice Sotomayor explained in McClinton, the fact is that even though a jury's specific reason for an acquittal will typically be unknown, the jury has formally and finally determined that the defendant will not be held criminally culpable for the conduct at issue. So far as the criminal justice system is concerned, the defendant has been set free or judicially discharged from an accusation, released from a charge, or suspicion of guilt. Indeed, the Supreme Court has repeatedly held that courts not only can but must draw precisely these types of factual conclusions based on general jury verdicts. That is how, for example, double jeopardy, collateral estoppel analysis work. The court must look to the entire record, including the pleadings, the jury charge, and the evidence. I assume this is about when the government was not very happy for the defense to basically said the jury didn't believe Mia. The jury didn't believe most of your witnesses, matter of fact. And they rebutted by saying that's not what that means just because he was acquitted. They could have just thought there wasn't an enterprise. However, when it comes to the trafficking, that had to be force, coercion, fraud. So it sounds like to me, because they acquitted him of that, they did not believe that when she had relations, that it was by force, coercion, or fraud based on those videos they saw. So they shouldn't be able to use force, coercion, fraud, or violence, because that would have been more towards the trafficking. That's one of the elements. So what the jury did find is that there was an individual brought across state lines who you paid for to have relations, and that was against the law. That's what he was convicted of. Okay. Let's go on. Oh, they're going in over there on the defense side. They said they ain't got nothing but time. They in their last hoorah. Okay. This is like the all-nighter right before your big test in law school. This is what this is. At one point, the government suggested the jury's acquittals on the sex trafficking counts could have been for many reasons other than a rejection of the defendant's force, fraud, or coercion, including, for example, a failure to prove that the defendant intended for his force, fraud, or coercion to cause the victim to engage in a commercial sex act. That makes no sense because the existence of fraud or coercion was bound up with Mr. Combs' mental state. All right. So they're trying to find alternate reasons as to why the judge would have acquitted, aside from they just didn't believe your client. I mean, not your client, but your witnesses, your alleged victims. Okay. Number 5, the government ignores all the fairness concerns. It does not even try to explain how sentencing Mr. Combs, in essence, as if he'd been convicted of charges on which the jury found him not guilty, would be the least fair. So what you're saying is unfair. Trying to charge him for things that he was acquitted for is not fair. The government also ignores the chorus of federal and state jurists who have raised Fifth and Sixth Amendment concerns about acquitted conduct sentencing. To the extent the government addresses Mr. Combs' argument under these constitutional provisions, it does so only in conclusory and non-responsive fashions. Let's move on. Lord have mercy. This is long. Sub C, there is no basis for applying Section 2A 3.1 grape cross-reference. Immediately after the jury returned a verdict, the government said Mr. Combs should be sentenced pursuant to Section 2G 1.1, the Mann Act guidelines, and a base offense level of 14. They did say that. They said that. It does not appear from the draft PSR that the government initially took a different position with probation. After probation released the initial PSR, however, the government apparently decided Section 2G 1.1 would not enable it to advocate a draconian enough sentence, so it switched courses and floated a totally different guideline as if he had been convicted of a far more serious offense, the cross-reference of Section 2G 1.1C1, which provides that the defendant should be sentenced pursuant to a different guideline if the offense involved conduct described in 18 U.S.C. Sections 224 sub A or B. Application of this provision would be more than double the base offense level to 30. So I told you, I said they're going to leave this here table and they're going to see everybody talking about, oh, you guys lost because you lost on the bigger charges and he just got, hit on the lesser offenses, because this was really like a lesser included offense. So he got convicted of the lesser offenses. And so I told you all they were going to go back to the books and they were going to find a way to make sure he does some good time. And that's probably, you have to, these people sat on the stand. I'm pretty sure Cassie would have rather been doing something else with her life than to be telling people about people allegedly urinating in her mouth or urinating on her and sores in her mouth and all this extra stuff that she was saying happened because she was involved in this. I'm sure she'd rather be doing something else while her husband was in the gallery watching. So I can see, just like the letter said with Dante, they feel like they put themselves out there and now the government could not keep them safe. because y'all lost. We did all of this and you guys lost. So I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that they feel like this is a way to try to, again, like they said, I said it yesterday. I said the judge may just split the baby. So you guys want 14 months, they want 11 years. So if you go down the middle, maybe we'll do like 2 to 5 years. And then it looks like you're being fair on both sides coming in between. That's what I thought the judge may end up doing. And so apparently Diddy's team felt the same way, where they were like, we know what you're doing. You know that these astronomical numbers that you're talking about don't even fit. These guidelines are way above what it should be. And you just hope you end up in the middle, because it's really going to look bad if he get like 14 to 18 months. And he already did a year. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else they're talking about. They're just challenging all the enhancements here that the government is trying to do. They also said the vulnerable victim enhancement. They tried to enhance it, saying there's a vulnerable victim. The court should follow probation's recommendation and reject the government's request for a 2-level enhancement on the ground that Miss Ventura and Jane were vulnerable victims. This enhancement applies only if 1, a victim of the offense was a vulnerable victim, and 2, the defendant knew or should have known as such. Neither element is satisfied here. Starting with the first element, a vulnerable victim is a person who is a victim of the offense of conviction and any conduct for which the defendant is accountable under section 1B1.3. And B, who is unusually vulnerable due to age, physical or mental condition, or who is otherwise particularly susceptible to the criminal conduct. Note 2. Ms. Ventura and Jane were not vulnerable, and any evidence of any supposed vulnerability has nothing to do with the Mann Act counts of conviction and is acquitted conduct. The court should decline to apply the enhancement on this basis alone. Even considering the entire trial record, the evidence shows that neither Ms. Ventura nor Jane were unusually vulnerable. The government does not and cannot contend that either of these 2 purported victims fall into any of the 3 categories identified in the guidelines. That is age or physical or mental condition. So another enhancement that the government was trying to get to add more time is to say that Cassie and Jane are vulnerable victims. Okay. They also asked for an enhancement for obstruction. They're saying that the defendant willfully obstructed or impeded or attempted to obstruct or impede the administration of justice with respect to the investigation, prosecution, or sentencing of the instant offense. And 2, the obstructive conduct related to A. Now, this is probably, remember they were saying he tried to contact somebody, one of the people, and was like, I'm going to still look out for you, or somebody he was messing with. I don't think that even really came out during trial, but I remember that during the sentencing that they were saying he was trying to contact people. Okay, let's move on. Lisa, so what you say, Lisa? Judge, please have your way with the sentence, and I thank you. Oh, I thank you. Thank you so much, champions, for the super chat. I appreciate that. I'm glad I don't have to look up that whole acquitted conduct, because they laid it out quite perfectly here. I saw it, but I just didn't want to give you guys any erroneous information. Okay, so because I knew everything has an exception. That's why I said, I'm like, everything has an exception. So generally speaking, I knew it existed, but were there exceptions? I had no clue. So apparently the government is trying to again apply the exception to this case. So let's go on. The government argues that after Mr. Combs settled a lawsuit against Ms. Ventura, he called Jane on November 19, purportedly to stave off a criminal investigation into his conduct. So the call with Jane, I guess they're trying to say was obstruction. But the jury rejected this evidence when it acquitted Mr. Combs of RICO conspiracy, for which this incident was charged as a predicate racketeering act. So you are right. It was charged as a predicate racketeering act, and that was dismissed a part of the RICO. So they're saying it's acquitted conduct and shouldn't be considered. And then they say in any event, as probation notes, there is no evidence Mr. Combs was aware of either the government's, assuming he had begun, or any other law enforcement investigation at the time of the cause. So even the probation, the PSR report said, hey, even when he talked to her, we don't even have evidence that he knew that he was being investigated. Okay. The government argues that Mr. Combs was worried about a criminal investigation because he suggested that he couldn't be speaking on phones. Should we all say that? FYI, government, we all say that. We get on the phone and we hear our voice echoing. We're like, did you hear that? When it's like, Pam, 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 you like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? What was that noise? I don't know, man. You know how the government is. So I don't know. We all say that. Don't be saying that on my phone. I say it all the time. But anyways, you want to read the probation report. Usually that is not public. Probation report has a lot of personal information in it. It will have health information, it have educational, it will have your marriage if you was divorced, it will have all your nastiness of your divorce. It has a lot of private information that the public should not be privy to. So let's move on. So they tried to get him on obstruction. Finally, even if the government could prove that he was worried about a criminal investigation rather than another civil suit, there is no evidence suggesting he was worried about an investigation into Mann Act violations. So they keep bringing it back to the Mann Act violation, okay? So they use Jane's cause as obstruction, even though he was paying for Jane still. So, I mean, I'm sure there would be some form of communication. In fact, Jane was like scheduled to, I think, come to New York on the day that he was arrested. The government's second alleged instance of obstruction is Mr. Combs' counsel's November 19, 2024 statement to the court concerning the potentially privileged status of notes obtained from his cell during the BOP sweep. You guys remember Operation BOP sweep when we were back in court for that, of which it is alleged that they were saying the pictures showing confidentiality and non-confidentiality wasn't matching up to the notebooks and stuff that Diddy had submitted to the court. So Agnifilo said he made the comment about the legal pads at issue based on erroneous information provided by another lawyer who is no longer on the defense team in the middle of a hearing and on the spur of the moment. So he's saying they told me what it was and I just responded. It was wrong, apparently. That was an inadvertent error by counsel, which counsel acknowledged on the record. Contrary to the government's claim, there was no effort of any sort by Mr. Combs to provide false information to counsel or to otherwise mislead the court or obstruct justice in any way. The government's remaining guideline arguments are meritless. Good gosh, how many do you have? Mr. Combs will only briefly address the government's remaining arguments as to the guidelines issues already addressed in the opening brief. The fraud and coercion enhancement, the role enhancement under, the grouping enhancement for victims, the acceptance of responsibility, the 0-point offender provision in, and overly punitive impermissible stacking. As explained in Mr. Combs' opening brief and in point 1, supra, the fraud and coercion enhancement doesn't apply because any evidence of alleged fraud or coercion was rejected by the jury when it acquitted Mr. Combs on counts 2 and 4. And this evidence thus now constitutes acquitted conduct. I would have to agree with that. I think that is acquitted conduct. But who am I? I'm just over here on YouTube. Similarly, Mr. Combs explained on page 111 and 112 of his opening brief that no role enhancement of any sort under section 3B 1.1 is appropriate because Mr. Combs was not a leader or organizer of any alleged criminal scheme. So that usually the leader or the organizer does go to a RICO. There were no participants within the meeting of the guidelines, and the alleged criminality was not otherwise extensive. Moreover, as explained both in Mr. Combs' opening brief and Super Point 1, the jury acquitted on the RICO conspiracy count clearly precludes the application of the enhancement. I have to agree with y'all. Mhm. The evidence doesn't support the government's belated efforts to add new knowing and unknowing participants to its theory anyway. The government now contends that Garen and Bridget from Cowboy Four Angels are knowing criminal participants, even though the company is a perfectly legal organization operating out in the open, which has been featured on reality TV show and featured in mainstream media publication. There is no basis for the government to subtly label the company a criminal organization, and the evidence shows that it made clear to Mr. Combs that its activities complied with the law. The government offers no explanation for how Mr. Combs could have been the leader or organizer of a service when he was its consumer and repeatedly engaged in arm's length negotiation with the company. Nor does the government explain how the Garen or Bridget could have had the mental state required to be knowing participants. Child, they are reaching. They were reaching in that brief. I knew it when it was long. Whew. The government also now claims that Fahim Muhammad, Mr. Combs' head of security, was a knowing participant. Mr. Combs refers the court to his arguments as to why Damian Butler, the security guard identified in the PSR, is not a participant. Additionally, there's insufficient evidence as to Muhammad's knowledge of the alleged criminal activity or that his involvement with Mr. Combs' cash supply had any connection to escorts as opposed to, for example, drugs or other activities Mr. Combs engaged in that might require money. So then they also say that neither Cassie or Jane, and especially not any of the escorts, were victims within the meeting and had no grouping is appropriate as a result. So that's another one I guess they're trying to do. Goodness. Okay. Denying Mr. Combs' 2-point reduction for acceptance of responsibility would unfairly penalize him for exercising his Sixth Amendment right to take his case to trial, particularly given the government's overcharging and failure to extend a reasonable plea offer during pretrial negotiations. So basically, they don't want to give him the 2-point for acceptance of responsibility because he didn't plea out. Which again, I agree. I think that's jacked up because it's almost like without them saying it, you're being punished for taking it to trial and making them prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So they're trying to take away his acceptance of responsibility because he took the case to trial. The government's suggestion that Mr. Combs had other options to accept responsibility is laughable. He would have received no benefit whatsoever had he pled guilty to the Mann Act charges before trial or declined to contest them at trial, since the government never offered him a deal involving a plea to the Mann Act counts alone. What's more, its plea offer was almost as draconian as its position now. The government insisted any plea agreement would include multiple counts, including the RICO count and enhancement for every charge racketeering act, and will require a stipulated guideline range of 324 to 405. Woo! That ain't no plea deal. No wonder he took it to trial. He didn't have a choice. 320. Let me see. Let's see how much that is. 324. 27 years. So they offer him 27 and he 55. 55. So he would have been 82 when he got out. So he was offered 27 to 33 years. He probably, you only have to do 85% of the time, get some good time and all of that. So he probably wouldn't have done as much, but he would have did some double ditches for sure. The government waves away its formal offer as vague references to discussions, but the government reduced its meaningless offer in writing on April 15th, 2025 at 12 a.m. AUSA Slavic emailed Mr. Combs' defense counsel attaching a written proposed plea agreement signed by Jacqueline Kelly, former chief of the SDNY Civil Rights Unit, containing the terms described above and advising that this offer would expire on April 18, 2025. Yet now, even though Mr. Combs was acquitted of RICO and sex trafficking, the government seeks an even higher guideline range. If that is not a trial penalty, it's not clear what would be. Defendants should not be penalized for refusing to accept ice and water. Hear that? The government cites no precedent precluding the court from relying on these pretrial developments to grant a two-level reduction. It cites only a summary order concluding without any analysis or elaboration that the defendant's failed plea negotiations with the government did not warrant acceptance points in the context of that particular case. So they say Mr. Combs is entitled to an additional two-level reduction for being a 0-point offender, as explained in the opening brief. The court should apply the 0-point offender provision from the 2023 manual along with the rest of the 2024 manual to avoid the constitutional concerns that would arise from applying either manual wholesale. Finally, the government's cumulative effect and enhancement stacking argument only confirmed Mr. Combs' position that a significant downward departure would be warranted if the court adopts any of the enhancement the government seeks. The enhancements the government advocates plainly substantially overlaps. Sade was trying to throw the book, the paper, the pad, the briefcase, the table, and the chairs at Diddy. Okay. So those are the enhancements that they were trying to give this guy. Wow. Zinga said this ain't no plea deal. They played in his face. They did. That was not a plea deal. So you saying 27 to 33 years and this man is 55 years old and that's the best you could do? The only way woo, that was really crazy. I didn't know that that's what that offer was. That is very interesting. Okay, let me see what I missed while I was over here reading and can't believe that this is really happening. 'Twas the night before sentencing and all through the nights. There's a Diddy that's praying from this long drawn out fight. His attorneys are not snuggled. They haven't gotten sleep. Praying that tomorrow Diddy will not be a bunch of weeping. Okay, KP said the jury got it wrong. So to protect the public from Diddy, the judge has his own discretion of how much time. That is not how that works. What you are saying is throw the jury in the trash and their decision. Judge, you become the 13th juror. Take off your referee uniform, take off your gatekeeper robe, and what I want you to do is do what you feel the jury should have done. That is not his job. And if he thinks that is his job, he might want to reread that manual. But I think that man is smart enough to know what his job is. And that ain't what you saying right now is not his job. It's his discretion to sentence him because the jury got it wrong. That is dumb. No, it's not. What's the point of having a jury then? So if the judge doesn't like what's said, then you're saying they have the right to just give you 100 years because they don't like what was with no rationale. All because they feel like the jury got it wrong. He didn't ask for it. That would take away your whole constitutional right. Because at the end of the day, you have the right to a jury of your peers. And if you're saying to me, the judge has the right to say, oh, I think the jury got it wrong, so let me give him 50 years, as if the jury did convict him. Yeah, that's just, oh Lord Jesus. Some of y'all be worrying me that you guys are actually the public and will be on juries one day. You will be struck immediately. The jury didn't want the government to take Diddy's money with the RICO plus his. It's like, yeah. Also, also. Do you know these people or something, Tamla? The jury didn't want the government to take Diddy's money with the RICO. So it's your opinion that they gave a dang about this man's wealth and said, I don't want him to be broke, when half of them was probably catching the train to get there. You think they cared about that? Like, this is the thought process of people. No, they did not. You know why they didn't convict him of the RICO? Because they didn't prove that there was a RICO. I said that. Actually, he was acquitted. So you're wrong again. You're just saying any old thing in this chat. We probably ain't your people. I've never seen you before, but we're probably not your people over here. I can name a couple channels for you that I think your comments probably work well. You're being really funny, aren't you? You're being funny? Okay. I'm about to start blocking people because some of this stuff is so dumb. I just can't even. It's messing with my brain. Can't can't deal with y'all messing with my brain. Oh, I think that. Oh, okay. At least just say things that make sense. That's all I be asking. Let's have a intellectual conversation. Like, I do wrongful convictions. For you to say the jury always gets it right is just you being funny, because I'm saying respect what the jury says. If the jury got it, what are you talking? They didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's just what it is. And that's what the jury, they saw way more evidence than we saw. They saw actual tapes. We didn't see that. We saw a bunch of redaction. So we don't even have all of the evidence. Why are y'all mad at the jury and mad that people are respecting that the jury acquitted them? Just saying. That part is over with. You can't relive it. And that's what the government is trying to do, is revive it. And that's not fair. That is not how the system is supposed to work. You got a right to a jury or you don't. What some of you are saying is that he should not have a right to a jury, because even if he goes to a jury, technically you're saying he doesn't have a right. Because even if a jury does make a decision to acquit him, the judge should have the discretion to sentence him to 100 years to penalize him for not getting it right. Who are they? Who is the judge to say what is right and wrong? That is for a jury of your peers to decide. They weigh the evidence. They discuss it amongst each other. That's how that goes. And you know Diddy, Francesca, you know Diddy. He ain't even been out of jail yet. He ain't learned nothing at all. How you know? Y'all just saying anything. How do you know? Tell me how you know Diddy ain't learned nothing. Go. Go. Hello. Hello, it's me. Explain that to me. Exactly. If they would have found him guilty, they'd have been like, oh, he got it right. And he would have appealed it, and we would have seen if there was any issues. And if the judge, and honestly, it's more deference to the trial court. That's why it's easier to convict somebody than it is to undo everything. when they get it wrong. I can't. These people, you would think they know this guy. Just saying. I'm just saying. Okay, so you just talking. You just say anything. You just wake up and make conclusions without an analysis to get to your conclusion. That's what you're saying. Okay, that's it. Anyway, y'all. Hi, Pam. I'm new to your channel, but I really don't understand this supposed to be a racial law, but only black people are still being charged with this act, and too many they getting away with it. So I don't have enough background to know how many people are being charged with the Mann Act and not like from a black or white perspective. So I don't know if that is true as the current day. What I can tell you is it does have a racial foundation of the reason why it was enacted. It does have a racial historical background. That is true. But as far as how many people are charged with it now, if it's just black people or if it's just minorities or white people, I don't know. I really don't know. Jesus help me. All right, y'all. Y'all making my blood pressure go up. And I gotta get up early so I can get something done to my hair that has been looking wild for the last 2 weeks. Okay. Since I went swimming. And so I have to be here, get up early so that I could be here for the sentencing. For those of you that are unaware, tomorrow is D Day. Will Diddy go home? Will the judge act like the 13th juror and throw the book at him? Or will they split the baby and go down the middle? Will the defense get their 14 months that they are requesting? And will the government get the 11 years that they are requesting? Tomorrow, probably around 11:30, 12, because it's a lot going on tomorrow. They said 4 attorneys are talking. They got a video presentation. They're going to let a couple victims talk. It looks like Mia gets to talk. The judge is going to have his, and he probably at right now writing his last hoorah, writing his dissertation on what he's going to say at the end. We're going to really know how he feels by the end of this. But we will all know tomorrow it will be somewhat concluded, except I think Diddy is really going to do some appealing if he feels like he has to. He still may appeal when it comes to this Mann Act situation as well. But we'll see. We shall see. M Max said I predict a 6-piece nugget. Letting people talk who has nothing to do with what they were convicted of makes no sense. Well, apparently they said it's okay. Tomorrow, will this be members only? I should at this point, the way some of y'all is acting today. But no, I'll be here at 10 o'clock. I'll be here at 10 o'clock on the main platform. So make sure you guys are over here. Make sure you have your notifications on. And you said free Diddy. I'm sure that's what his prayer is tonight. His prayer tonight is to be free. The government is praying that he gets a permanent inmate number and that he has to be carried off on the bus. The judge is praying that he makes the right decision. There's a lot of prayers going up. God is busy on tonight. So let's see. Let's see. Pam, I'm sending you my letter of notification letting you know that I will be absent tomorrow, but I will give you my two thumbs. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, y'all. Y'all have a good night. You know, I like each and every one of y'all, except for the ones I had to, go off on tonight. I don't really care for you that much right now, but I'm a forgiving person. So by tomorrow, I'll forget your names. And if you're in the chat talking trash again, I'll probably just say something back to you again. and forget that you was talking trash yesterday. That's just how much I forgive and have mercy on people because I want mercy and grace for my life. Unlike some of you guys that don't feel like people can change. hmm But good night, guys. I think that's it. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on one more. Let me make sure they ain't filed nothing. Whew. I can't believe this live was this long. Let me see. Hold on. Let's do a quick check. Let's see. Let's see if there were any late night filings before we depart this gathering. Nope, that was it. I think we went over everything that was filed on today. You all get a good night's sleep. Warm your fingers because I know there'll be a lot of typing in these comments. And we'll be back to do it all over again tomorrow, Lord willing. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. But those two that I actually got on my nerves today, feel free to unsubscribe. It's fine. It's okay with me. You can thumbs down it too. I don't care. I still get the engagement. Anyway, you guys have a good night. Gotta go.